Picture an ordinary Tuesday evening. You're standing in your kitchen, and suddenly you and your partner are just bickering.
Right, over nothing.
Exactly. It's about something incredibly mundane, like how to properly load the dishwasher or whose turn it is to take out the recycling.
Oh, the classic recycling fight.
Right, but the tension is thick, the tones are sharp. But here is the open secret. You aren't really arguing about the dishes at all.
No, not at all.
Beneath the surface, you are arguing about the elephant in the room that neither of you wants to name. You are really arguing about a desire gap. This is AI Dialogue Lab, and today we unpack desire gaps without blame, pressure, or avoidance.
And that last part is so crucial.
It really is. So for this deep dive, our mission is to extract the most crucial insights from a massive stack of sources. We've got clinical psychology research, relationship therapy literature, and behavioral science data.
A lot of data to get through.
Yeah, but we're going to use it to shortcut your path to truly understanding desire discrepancy. And to do this justice, we're going to embody the two sides of this dynamic today.
Which I think is going to be really helpful for you listening.
I hope so. I am going to lean into that lonely, frustrated perspective. The side that is sitting there thinking, I feel unwanted, rejected, and unloved by the person who is supposed to care about me the most.
And I will be representing the guarded perspective. So the side that is constantly thinking, I feel pressured, monitored, and like I'm failing a test I never even agreed to take.
It's heavy.
It is heavy. Because our absolute goal today is to show you how both partners are deeply hurt at the exact same time, and more importantly, how you can get out of the courtroom and back onto the same team.
Okay, let's unpack this. To start, we have to recognize just how universal this struggle actually is. I mean, it feels so isolating when you are in it, but it is everywhere.
Oh, everywhere. A mismatch in intimacy or desire frequency is arguably, it's one of the single most common issues couples face. It is often the #1 reason couples seek out relationship therapy.
Wow, number one.
Yeah, #1. But we need to establish a foundational truth right out of the gate. A desire gap does not automatically mean love has disappeared.
Which is hard to believe when you're in it.
Right, because culturally, we are handed this incredibly damaging script that two people who love each other should just perfectly sync up in their physical desires forever.
Like magic.
Exactly, like magic. And that is biologically and psychologically unrealistic. It is a completely normal feature of putting two different human nervous systems with entirely different backgrounds, metabolisms, and stress thresholds under the exact same roof.
Okay, but knowing it's normal doesn't make it hurt any less, though?
No, of course not.
Because the physical gap isn't actually what destroys relationships, right? It's the private stories we tell ourselves in the dark.
The stories are what do the damage.
Yeah. Speaking from the perspective of the higher desire partner, when you reach out and get the cold shoulder, you don't just think, oh, they had a long day at the office.
Right. Your brain doesn't go there?
No, your brain goes straight into survival mode.
Yeah.
You spin this profoundly painful narrative. You interpret that no as a referendum on your fundamental worth. The private story becomes, I am not loved, or you aren't attracted to me anymore, or, I am physically repulsive to you. It is a deeply lonely place to be.
I completely validate that pain. I mean, the feeling of rejection activates the exact same neural pathways in the brain as physical pain. It's a very real wound.
Right.
But we have to look at the other side of the bed, because the lower desire partner is often lying right next to you, wide awake, telling an agonizing private story of their own.
What does that sound like?
Their internal monologue sounds like, I am broken, I am inadequate, something is fundamentally wrong with me because I cannot naturally give you what you need.
Oh, man.
Yeah, they are feeling this crushing weight of expectation. They start interpreting every passing glance or casual touch as a demand. They are telling themselves, I am constantly being pressured to perform and I am constantly failing.
So both partners are trapped in completely different stories of inadequacy.
Exactly. Completely different, but equally painful.
But if my partner isn't broken, and they really do still love me, why does it feel like they are actively building a brick wall between us?
It's a defense mechanism.
Think about it this way, right? Imagine you keep inviting your best friend to go to the movies. You ask on Friday, they say no. You ask on Saturday, they say no.
Right.
Eventually, you just stop asking because the constant rejection simply hurts too much. It feels like they are deliberately shutting you out.
Right. But the crucial mechanism to understand here is that the wall they are building isn't meant to keep you out.
What is it for then?
It is meant to protect their own nervous system from overload. This brings us to a well-documented psychological pattern called the pursuer-distancer dynamic.
Oh, I've heard of this.
Yeah, pursuit and withdrawal can very quickly become a toxic, self-fulfilling loop. The higher desire partner seeks reassurance. Often, they are using the pursuit of physical intimacy as a proxy for emotional validation.
Like they're basically asking, are we okay? Am I safe with you?
Exactly. But the more they pursue to soothe their own anxiety, the more the lower desire partner feels cornered. To protect their autonomy and escape the pressure, they withdraw further.
Which just makes the pursuer panic and pursue harder.
Inevitably, yes.
It is exactly like a Chinese finger trap. You stick your fingers in, and your instinct is to pull away to get free.
That's a great analogy.
But the harder one partner pulls to get closer, the tighter the woven bamboo gets. It literally forces the other partner to pull violently away just to be able to breathe.
The mechanism of the finger trap is exactly what happens. And we can look at the data from the Journal of Sex and Marital Therapy regarding attachment orientations here.
Okay, what do they say?
Well, individuals with an anxious attachment style have a nervous system that equates distance with abandonment. When they feel a disconnect, their attachment system hyperactivates.
So they get clingy.
Right. They use closeness and physical intimacy as a biological tool to downregulate their anxiety. But on the other hand, someone with an avoidant attachment style has a nervous system that equates pressure with engulfment.
Oh, so they feel trapped.
Yes. When they sense an emotional demand, their attachment system deactivates to maintain safety. They physically and emotionally withdraw to avoid vulnerability.
So my attempt to regulate my nervous system by leaning in is actively dysregulating their nervous system.
Yes, and that is causing them to pull away. And when the avoidant partner feels that tightening bamboo from the finger trap, they check out in really pervasive ways.
What does that look like?
The literature from Vantage Point Counseling discusses numbing behaviors. The pressured partner might resort to numbing just to cope with the overwhelming expectation.
Like pouring a drink.
Or they might retreat into doom scrolling on their phone for 3 hours, burying themselves in work emails late at night, or just obsessively watching television.
Wait. So when my partner's doom scrolling on the couch, ignoring me, they aren't doing it because they don't care about me.
No.
You're saying it's actually a defense mechanism against the pressure. That is incredibly hard to swallow when you're the one sitting there feeling completely ignored and invisible.
It is deeply painful to witness, I know. But it is a survival strategy, not a malicious act of neglect. Their nervous system is overwhelmed by the perceived demand of your presence, so it shuts down and seeks a low-stakes distraction to self-soothe.
That makes sense, even if it hurts.
And if this dynamic continues unchecked, it leads to another highly destructive trap, which is sexual compliance.
Compliance is a really clinical, cold word.
Mm-hmm.
What does that actually look like in practice?
Well, there's a widely discussed Finnish behavioral study that defines sexual compliance as agreeing to intimacy when your own personal desire isn't initially present. It's voluntary, not physically forced. But the critical psychological factor is why someone complies.
Right.
If they comply out of what researchers call approach motives, meaning they act out of a genuine desire to foster intimacy, express love, or feel emotionally close, it can actually be a positive bridge for the relationship.
But what if they just do it to get it over with?
Right. That's if they comply out of avoidance motives, meaning they engage in intimacy out of a sense of obligation, perceived coercion, guilt, or just to stop an impending argument.
Wow.
Yeah, that operates entirely differently. Engaging in intimacy through avoidance motives creates severe sexual distress and deep-seated resentment. It turns connection into a chore, and the body remembers that coercion.
So pulling harder just makes the trap tighter, and forcing compliance just breeds this toxic resentment. How do we actually loosen it? We have to look at what's weighing both partners down, right?
We have to examine the biological reality of stress. Desire does not exist in a vacuum. It is deeply vulnerable to the physiological state of the body.
Like if you're tired.
Beyond tired. When a person is carrying a heavy mental load, chronic fatigue, simmering resentment from unresolved arguments, a lack of emotional safety, health issues, the overwhelming burden of parenting, relentless work deadlines, or financial worries, their body is flooded with cortisol.
Which is the stress hormone.
Exactly. Cortisol is an alarm system. Biologically speaking, your sympathetic nervous system cannot prioritize the vulnerability and relaxation required for intimacy when it genuinely believes it is actively fighting off a threat. Survival always trumps connection.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because this Completely shatters the Hollywood myth we've all been sold since we were teenagers.
The fairy tale.
Yeah, I always thought desire was supposed to just magically happen, like flipping a light switch. You lock eyes across a room, the music swells, and suddenly you're overcome with passion, regardless of what happened that day at work.
That is the spontaneous desire myth, and it does a massive disservice to long-term relationships. For a significant portion of the population, desire is not a switch you can just flip.
How does it work?
The biological drive doesn't work like hunger or thirst. Instead, we have what researchers call responsive desire. Desire emerges in response to a specific context.
Okay, give me an example.
Think of your nervous system like a house. Chronic stress and exhaustion keep you locked in the muddy, chaotic foyer right by the front door. You cannot just teleport from the muddy foyer directly into the bedroom. There is no magic doorway there.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Right. Responsive desire is about the necessity of slowly unlocking the hallway doors. You have to transition through feeling cared for, sharing a joke, or experiencing a non-demanding hug first.
You'll have to warm up the house.
The context has to signal safety before the body will allow arousal. Arousal precedes desire, not the other way around.
Okay, but practically speaking, if my partner has a responsive desire and they are stuck in the muddy foyer of stress, how do we ever get the engine started without them feeling like I'm handing them a chore?
It's tricky.
Yeah, how do I initiate a conversation about this disconnect without it immediately feeling like I'm turning up the pressure gauge?
By completely overhauling the way you talk about it. You need to initiate a low-pressure repair ritual. Repair is not about persuasion. It is never about negotiating for a specific frequency of intimacy.
Right.
It is about taking the issue out of the bedroom, placing it on the table between you, and looking at it together as an us problem, not a you problem.
I need the actual steps for that conversation because I know myself and I know my relationship. If I go in hot and emotional, those walls are going right back up instantly.
The steps require high intentionality. First, you name the gap objectively. You might say, I notice we've been really out of sync lately.
Simple, non-accusatory.
Second, you remove blame entirely from the conversation. You make it clear you are attacking the dynamic, not the person. Third, you ask with genuine curiosity what opens the door to closeness for them. What makes them feel safe?
And then ask the opposite.
Exactly. Fourth, you ask what shuts that door down, what makes them feel pressured. This leads into Dr. Amy Muse's research on sexual communal strength.
Wait, what does communal strength mean in this context? Because it sounds like you're just telling me to cater entirely to my partner's needs and ignore my own.
Not at all. The core idea of communal strength, the FLAME acronym in the literature, is that being motivated to meet a partner's needs is a wonderful asset in a relationship.
Sure.
But the critical finding in Muse's data is that this motivation must be balanced by your own agency. If you are constantly crossing your own boundaries to please a partner, or ignoring your own need for emotional safety to cater to theirs, the research shows that both people end up reporting significantly lower relationship satisfaction and higher depressive symptoms.
Oh, wow.
You must maintain your own agency.
It's like draining your own bank account to pay off someone else's debt. Eventually, you're both bankrupt and nobody can pay the mortgage.
That's exactly it.
So to avoid that bankruptcy, you have this objective, low-pressure conversation, and then what? You just talk about your feelings forever.
No, you have to act.
Right. This is where you choose one small experiment to try together.
Yeah.
Treat it exactly like a middle school science experiment.
I love this way of framing it.
If you and your lab partner mix baking soda and vinegar and the volcano just sort of fizzes out and does nothing, you don't cry and take it as a deeply personal failure of your character. You just write down the results, adjust the ratio of baking soda, and try again on Tuesday.
Exactly.
You do the exact same thing with intimacy. You explicitly agree to try one low-pressure point of connection, and you revisit it later to see how the experiment felt, absolutely without keeping score.
Which brings up the crucial next step. What does a low-pressure connection actually look like for a nervous system that has been primed to expect pressure?
Yeah. What does that actually look like?
It looks like rebuilding non-demand affection. This is arguably the most vital step for couples trapped in a desire gap. Think about hugs, casual touches as you pass in the kitchen, sharing a joke, verbal appreciation, or just spending time together on the couch.
Just regular affection.
Right. But for the guarded partner, these everyday things can become terrifying if they have historically always been a gateway to an escalation.
Oh, right.
If every time you give them a back rub, their brain registers it as a secret negotiation for physical intimacy, their nervous system will quickly learn to flinch at your touch. To unlearn the flinch, the affection must be explicitly non-demand. It must exist purely for its own sake, with zero expectation of anything more.
Because if every hug is a trapdoor, I'm never going to hug you. It makes total sense.
Yeah.
Dr. Emily Nagoski also talks about this concept called the third thing, which I think is a brilliant way to rebuild this non-demand safety.
Yes, the third thing is so helpful.
Sometimes the pressure of face-to-face connection is just too intense when the gap is wide. So you find a shared point of fascination, a hobby, taking the dog for a long walk, working on a complex puzzle.
Right, something outside yourselves.
Exactly. Something where you can connect side by side, entirely removing the pressure of face-to-face performance. You aren't staring at each other waiting for a spark. You're just inhabiting the same safe space, which allows emotional warmth to naturally return to the room.
Side-by-side connection is an incredibly effective, low-stakes way to rebuild the emotional floor plan. It signals to the body that the environment is safe again.
Yeah.
However, I do want to establish a very firm, compassionate boundary for anyone listening.
Okay, what is it?
We are talking about navigating a normal, albeit painful, desire discrepancy between two willing partners. But if your gap involves any elements of fear, coercion, physical pain, unresolved trauma, a medical concern, or repeated contempt and hostility from a partner.
That's a different story.
Completely. That is entirely beyond the scope of this deep dive. In those cases, you cannot fix it with a puzzle or a conversation framework. The most loving and necessary step a couple can take in those circumstances is to seek professional support from a licensed relationship therapist or medical provider. There is no shame in getting the right kind of help when the foundation itself is compromised.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener? We've covered a tremendous amount of ground today. From the biological mechanisms of attachment theory, to the architecture of responsive desire, to the dangers of the Chinese finger trap.
A lot of ground.
Yeah, but if you remember nothing else from this deep dive, you need to take away these 3 exact points.
Right.
First, desire gaps become dangerous when they turn into private stories of rejection or pressure.
Absolutely.
Second, the goal is not to win an argument about frequency. The goal is to create safety, honesty, and consent.
Yes.
Third, start with one low-pressure conversation and one small experiment. Then revisit without keeping score.
And before we go, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over on your own as you process all this.
Let's hear it.
We spend so much time in our culture trying to fix the person with lower desire. But what if the partner with low desire isn't broken at all? What if they are actually functioning perfectly, reacting exactly as a human body should to an environment that hasn't yet prioritized their unique map for emotional safety?
If you like AI Dialogue Lab, like, subscribe, share, and turn on notifications.